Okay, so this video is going to be focusing on Year 10 Guide to Unseen Short Answer Questions. Why this is so important is because in Year 12, the HC exam, you will have to respond to unseen short answer questions to a series of texts. And this text are focusing on different forms, so different types of text, and the medium, so the way it's communicated. This could be visual, written, etc., etc. So it's very, very important that you are very comfortable using your techniques to be able to look at how they're used to shape meaning. You're not just going to be describing in unseen. You need to explore how language is used or visual elements are used to shape meaning. Meaning, when we're talking about meaning, we're talking about ideas. So very, very important. Okay. And when you're talking about ideas, it always has something to do with like human experiences. Like a human experience or the impact of on individuals. Ultimately, it's all about the human experience. So, Year 10 are focusing on To Kill a Mockingbird as a text and looking at themes such as racism, injustice, and so forth. So these texts will have to do with something like that. So there we have it here. Okay, but obviously it's not exhaustive. There's going to be, there's many other themes that you can look at. It really depends. So I put this in here, and this is something that you need to look at on your own, but you need to understand the verbs. The verbs tell you what you should be doing and the manner in which you should be responding. So if there's an explain, okay, that's much easier, okay? You're just explaining, okay? You're just explaining how something works and why it happens. You can use techniques. When you're evaluating, this is a very difficult skill. You're making a judgment on how effective something is. And when you're evaluating, you're using evaluative words. For example, skillfully conveys is evaluative because you're saying that it's very effective. Okay. Strongly conveys is also evaluative. This is a very shallow understanding, but that's an example. Justify means you're providing evidence to support your answer. It's just kind of like when you're explaining, you're doing this as well. You're always justifying things. Discuss, you're exploring different aspects of a topic. If it says discuss the role of empathy in the extract, discuss the different roles of empathy, okay? How you empathize, what it does, like the different sides to empathy. And how is one of the easy ones as well. It's the method used by the composer. And these are techniques. All goes back to techniques. And form. Don't forget form. Form is very important. The type of text. So why would they use narrative to do this? And features are just the techniques of that type of text. My handwriting is so messy. Okay, so general marks and techniques guide looked at on your own. And this is a really good scaffold to use, okay? This is a good scaffold. Look, you have to change, this according to what text you're using. So this could be poet, author, okay? So make sure you're using the appropriate meta language. Composer, it's just more so for visual text. All right, good. So what I want to focus on is just two texts today. I want to focus on a visual text, and I want to focus on, I believe it's an extract from a narrative or a memoir, one of them. I'm pretty sure it's a memoir. But the one that I want to look at is this. And I want to unpack the question first. And the question is, analyze the illustrator's ability to convey the negative implication of prejudice on individuals. So you need to analyze it. And if you go back to the verbs, analyze has to do with explaining how techniques are used. Techniques are used and the effect, the intended effect. you perceive. So you're not just identifying what's in the image. Don't just do that. You need to explain how the image conveys meaning, the ideas. What is it showing? All right, so analyze the illustrator's ability to convey. Convey just means show, communicate. And also it's ability questions. So this is also kind of, you're making a slight judgment as well. The negative implications of prejudice on individuals. So your topic is prejudice, that's your theme. But I want to focus on negative implications. What negative implications mean is just you're looking at what is the emotional or mental impact of prejudice on the character shown. That's what you're looking at. An implication just means the impact, the effect. And you want to look at how does the illustrator show that impact clearly. That refers to ability. Okay, so implication, negative implications, it's just, the harmful, it's not a positive implication, because we know that prejudice is very damaging, So if we look at this image, it's of Tom Robinson in a graphic novel, and it has 4 panels shown. We know it's a visual text because it's from the graphic novel. So 4 panels, and it's showing his movement. But we know it doesn't change that much. What it's focusing on is the facial expressions, and that's a visual technique. So these 4 panels here are showing the movement and change in his reaction to the guilty verdict. Look at his reaction there. He closes his eyes as they say guilty. And remember, there's a repetition here as well. I think we should use that as a technique. Repetition. Guilty, 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 guilty. This is all, the jury's verdict. And you can see that there's a change. At the beginning, he closes his eyes because he just can't believe it. And then you can see the pain, the torment. He's tormented by this verdict. And in here, that really, really shows us there that there's an impact. And in the end, there's kind of like acceptance. Because we know that he's very used to this type of treatment. So, when we go back to the scaffold, we want to start to compose our response here. And because it's a 3 marker, I would use 2 techniques, just stronger that way. So, there is a negative implication here, because we show that there's a repeated reaction to the word guilty, and it's impactful. His facial expressions change from pained to defeated. He's defeated here. He pretty much accepts it. No choice, really. Showing the emotional weight of the verdict. It has a bearing on him. There's a weight to him. The repetition of guilty and his body language highlight how prejudice lead to deep emotional harm and a loss of hope, because here we can see a loss of hope. So we know there's a negative implication, and we know that it's weighing on him mentally and emotionally. And he's silent. He's there, and we see it all through his facial expressions. So we can start crafting our response. The composer, and if we go back to the scaffold, you should always start off your first sentence with straight to the point. The composer shows theme, ID, through, and then label all your techniques in the first sentence. I'm going to use techniques, 2 techniques. Start composing the response. The composer effectively, this goes back to ability. Let me just write that in another, because I'm making a judgment. Effectively demonstrates the emotional burden, just referring to the weight of the impact of prejudice. Now I'm making a claim of prejudice through facial expressions and repetition. And now I'm going to do the first technique. I'm going to talk about that. The facial expression through the close-up panels captures Tom Robinson's emotional turmoil I'll say response, not turmoil. Emotional response to the guilty verdict. And then I'm going to go straight to the point and tell me, the negative implication. Demonstrating. Okay, and I'm going to talk about pain to hopelessness. Demonstrating his pain and hopelessness as he accepts his fate. And now I'm going to talk about the second technique. And it's going to reinforce the first one because they come together. The repetition of guilty, emphasizes the impact. I'm going to say crushing impact. The crushing impact of prejudice, showing how deeply it affects Tom without the need for his dialogue, because he's silent. Okay, and that's a response. And you can have a closing sentence if you want, but since it's a 3 marker, I wouldn't bother. All right, so that's how I would respond to it. And what I did is I talked about the negative implications here. The repetition is showing that, the crushing impact. And because the repetition relates to the panels, it all relates. His pain and hopelessness. That's the negative impact. That's the implication. Okay, so that's how you'd respond to that visual question.